if somebody's starting a podcast and I ask them, oh, what are you doing it? What's it going to be? And they're just like, just going to hang out and talk. That's not really going to, people aren't really going to find that as much as, especially if you're not a movie star or anything. But if you say, oh, I want to start a podcast about jet ski repair, then people might find you and you're going to create its niche and you're going to create a community that way. And it's obviously something you're passionate about if that's what you're going to start a podcast about. So it'll be genuine and authentic already. So that's kind of what I mean.
You're listening to Creatives Prevail, unraveling the stories of creative professionals.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Creatives Prevail. I'm your host, Mike Zimmerlich, and my next guest is longtime content and podcast producer, musician, and former co-host of the Adam Carolla Show, Chris Laxamana. In this interview, we discuss his experiences in producing and hosting podcasts, including memorable guests, as well as building a show that people want to return to. Let's get into it. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Hi, it's going great. How are you? I miss you.
I miss you too. It's only been a few months, but every time I had so much fun with you. We met for the first time at the NAMM show back in 2025, in fact, and we really hit it off. You were one of the panelists. In fact, we posted that episode with it was all about streaming and the tech issues and all those things about how to get started with streaming and podcasting. And it was such a great panel. And ever since then, we always will just catch in throughout the year and so forth. And it was so funny. We ran into each other at the NAMM show earlier this year.
Yeah, we basically met on stage, and it was a really great conversation. And the other panelists that you chose to made it worthwhile. I still think about a lot of the things that were said on that stage. I found it really useful and helpful. And then just any chance I get to run into you. And I know I said I missed you, and you're like, oh, it's already been a few months, but I think that's enough time to miss somebody.
Yes.
So, but
yes,
it's
absolutely
good. I'm loving all the stuff you're posting and all the knowledge you're sharing. I think it's important.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that. And I do want to start off with this question because you mentioned about how you've learned things at the panel and so forth. And you've been doing this for such a long time now. And you've been doing it both in front of the camera and as well as behind the camera. To you, what does it take to have good quality content? When I say like good quality content, what does that mean to you?
It means a lot of things. I guess it boils down. You hear a lot of words, buzzwords, and they're all true. You want it to be authentic. You want it to be genuine. But as far as content goes, I think the thing that I realize is most important is it has to be able to build some sort of community. If you're looking to monetize or looking to just make it successful in regards of views, downloads, anything like that, creating a community around it is probably number one.
Can you talk more about community? So is it like topic based, point of views, all the above?
All of the above. But like, for instance, if somebody's starting a podcast and I ask them, oh, what are you doing it? What's it going to be? And they're just like, just going to hang out and talk. That's not really going to, people aren't really going to find that as much as, especially if you're not a movie star or anything. But if you say, oh, I want to start a podcast about jet ski repair, then people might find you and you're going to create its niche and you're going to create a community that way. And it's obviously something you're passionate about if that's what you're going to start a podcast about. So it'll be genuine and authentic already. So that's kind of what I mean. It's just a little, it can be broad, but you still have to appeal to people to where they can happen upon you. They want to tell a friend about you, and things like, and what you're saying. So there's a point of view being said. So I think that's kind of what I mean as far as creating some sort of community around the content that you're making, whether it's a podcast or your Instagram account or your TikTok account or something like that. Just something that like people want to chime in on, people want to share with others. So that's basically where I'm heading with that.
Jet ski repair is super niche, by the way. That was great. I like that one. And
I'm starting that, by the way. No, I'm not. Don't start that. I'm not. I know nothing about jet ski repair.
Maybe that's the whole point, right? Have a podcast about learning about how to do jet ski repair.
That's right. And that's totally a thing too. People post and share their journeys. And I find that fascinating. I actually encourage more niche topics and getting in the weeds about topics. I know a lot of people, like when they have an interview with somebody and they they're trying to keep it palatable for a broad audience. Oh, people don't want to hear me talk about the different pot capacities in my electronics, but some people do. Even if they don't know what you're talking about, it's interesting to just hear people use that vocabulary or that sort of specialty point of view or term when you're describing something or talking about something you're passionate about. So I always encourage people to just get in the weeds about things too. And if you think people are tuning out, that's not something you really need to be thinking about too much when you're chatting about something you love.
It's true. And I know for myself, when I start talking about something that I'm really passionate about, in fact, I actually have to hold myself back because I tend to ramble when that happens, right? But I think that when people will hear that excitement coming out of you, and that's the whole point, is if you're talking about something that is passionate, that you're really into, they're going to sense that as well, and maybe they'll pick up something new. Maybe that's something that they are already interested in, and so forth. So, and I feel like it really helps too, because I feel the one thing I will mention outside of finding a very specific subject or topic is the personality itself, right? There are certain people that just have that charismatic personality that they can talk about. They can literally just start reading off of the dictionary and make it sound interesting, right? There are some key people that can just pull that off, right? I'm not one of them. I need to have amazing guests on my show to make this far more interesting. So I don't have that kind of personality. Most people don't. It's a very unique personality to have where you can capture people's attention and hold it for a long period of time.
Yeah, I'll disagree. I think you have a great personality, and I think you can do that. But a lot of people don't start off that way, right? You've had over 260 episodes of this show, so you've sort of learned the ebb and the flow, and sort of found your voice. You've had a lot of time to do that. But if you're like, for some more advice for anybody who's just thinking of starting one, I always suggest finding great guests and great topics. But because people will tune in if you have a good guest or a good topic that you want to talk about, but they will keep coming back if they like you, the host. Like, think about any podcast that you keep coming back for. You have to enjoy the host, or you're not going to come back. So they'll come back for you, but they'll tune in because of a guest or something you're talking about. So it really is both. So I always suggest finding your own voice in that sense too, and it's like making friends.
It is like making friends. And I mean, I appreciate you doing a shout out on how many episodes might be. You've been doing this for far longer than I have. I mean, you go back to, I think 2010 I saw. I mean, to me, that's like the golden age of podcasting, if you will. That there was the dawn of podcasting, which most people don't think about, which is around 2004, 2005 ish, where literally it was you downloaded to an actual iPod and that's how you listen to it. I remember doing that and listening to like a very select few of podcasts that are out there during that time. And then during like the late 2000s, early 2010s, podcasting just skyrocketed and became this massive platform. So you were at the forefront of all that.
Yeah, and I started in 2010. I would say even when I started producing podcasts in 2010, when I told people what I did, for 4 years, it was kind of like if somebody has a weird name, you're already like, if I had a weird name, and I don't, it's Chris, unfortunately, but if it was more unusual, I'd always be prepared to just repeat myself right after, right? Like everyone, I'm going to have to say it twice, and it just becomes a normal thing. That's what working as a podcast producer was. They would go, what do you do? Oh, I produce podcasts. And the next question, what's a podcast? And then you'd have to explain what it is for 4 years straight until like Serial came out. The podcast, not the food. And when Serial came out, it kind of broke, I think, that was the biggest mainstream break for the medium. And and after that, I didn't have to explain what a podcast was ever again. But yeah, 2010, that's funny that you call it the golden age. I thought so too. It was still the Wild West. You had no idea what was going to happen. Kind of anything goes. There wasn't really any rules yet. And, yeah, it was just, I mean, if you want to talk about building a community, my gosh, like just being able to connect with people on such a deep level back then, because the people who knew what podcasting was and they knew what you were doing and how to find you, it was just that connection was crazy. Like I mean, you said you listened like in 2004, 2005, maybe like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the first podcast I listened to was like a Lost recap podcast where people just like, I would watch Lost
awesome.
episodes and
Yep.
I wanted to hear people talk about it the next day. And I loved it. I looked forward to it. And so it's just, yeah, being able to connect with people you don't even know. And personally, it was just the coolest thing ever.
Was it the community that drawn you into producing podcasts and getting into that profession? Because again, like very few people knew what podcasting still was at that point in time.
Kind of. I wish I could say yes, but really what it was the exchanging of ideas that sort of kept me there. It was, I have a music background, so whenever my speakers were on, it was always music playing. I never listened to talk radio, AM radio, anything where people were just talking. If I heard people talking, I'd tune out or I'd change it to some music or hear a song that I've heard 1,000 times. So when I first heard a podcast, I mean, going back I was asked to help out with Adam Carolla Show because I had a sound engineering background and they needed to help dial in some stuff. So I went in, thinking, okay, two people talking, easy, set some faders, set some EQ, get them going. And I was just supposed to come in for the day. And I just listened to the show and it made me laugh. It made me think. I was just like, what is this? This is crazy. It was like something I've never heard before. And I know, and it was just because I was late to the game. I know they've been doing this kind of stuff for a long time, but when I heard a podcast and just people just trying to make each other laugh and trying to find out about things and trying to just sort of chip away at certain ideas and seeing what they can make out of it, it was cool. So that's what kept me going. That's what kept me coming back. I remember after that, I just kept coming back for free, just to hang out until they eventually hired me. But yeah, then the community came after, because I didn't even realize anything about the community. It was more of just hearing two people talk like that was mind blowing.
So I wanted to rewind for a second, because getting that gig, now mind you, for context, right? The Adam Carolla Show, I mean, it's I say the godfather, grandfather, if you will, a podcast, right? I mean, I think to this day it's one of the most downloaded podcasts in history, and especially one of the first ones that really started to popularize the whole platform. And Adam Carolla, even before starting a podcast, was already a celebrity figure. So,
right,
so that was essentially your first gig was working on that show. So can you talk a little bit more about like how you were able to even get that gig to begin with?
So I just, it was all just through connection of just somebody who was working there knew that I did sound, and I was probably the only person you could think of that did sound that was nearby. It's like, hey, can you just come in and help us dial this in? We built a new studio. We're trying to get this show to sound good. And I said, sure. So I came in and was horrified at their setup. They had like this 24 channel, like analog Mackie, and they only had like 3 or 4 mics going into it, a laptop going into it. And then the output was, and I'm getting technical here, 2 like unbalanced quarter-inch cables coming out and meeting into it was like a Y cable coming into like an 1/8-inch cable going into the headphone jack of a laptop that had QuickTime open, and QuickTime was recording it. So this big mixer coming out and just going straight into a laptop with QuickTime recording it.
Wait. So QuickTime.
Yeah.
That was what I was recording on.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's bold.
It
was awesome. And so like all their files were like .mov files because they were saving it to QuickTime, and then
Wow.
they'd have to convert them. But it just, I mean, it's just a testament to show that content really is king, because that show was huge
Mm-hmm.
when they were doing that. And the content was incredible. The interviews, the comedy. So getting this to just walk into that and help them figure it out, get a backup recorder going, try to figure out how to record into a better format and export into a better format, dialing in the settings of, exporting and how, I'd love to talk about that too, but, and just trying to do all of that. It was just crazy because I've never worked on something long form like that either. So I usually want to export in the highest setting in stereo, and back then, I mean, you wanted the smallest file you could come up with, because people were downloading these things. They were like, streaming wasn't really a thing yet. So people are still downloading everything, and so you wanted something that downloaded really quick and they could just throw it on their iPod and doesn't take up a ton of space. So it was like figuring out the balance of in that sweet spot. But I remember going there, record the show in a quick time. The guest was Olivia Munn, and I think the second day was this up and coming podcaster named Joe Rogan. And
Wow. So those were the back-to-backs that you had on your first
yeah.
day, on your first gig.
It was
Wow.
awesome. I mean, Joe didn't have a podcast back then.
Right.
But he fell in love with it. I'm pretty sure I was there the day he fell in love with it. And it was, so it was just so fun. And everyone was really nice and very welcoming, and it was just a cool environment. So I was just happy to keep coming back, just be a fly on the wall and they were trying to build a network. So they said, hey, we're developing these other shows. Come help us with these ones. And I just kept coming back and made a lot of friends doing that. And it just blossomed into me having to be there, me kind of being the guy that they called whenever they needed something, and I really loved it. So it was a pretty easy decision for me to stick around and see this thing through.
And for context, the network that's being built, that was Podcast One?
No, it's called
that
Carolla
different?
Digital. Well, actually at the time it was called Ace Broadcasting, which then turned into Carolla Digital, which was then acquired by Podcast One.
Yeah, because Podcast One is a massive network now.
Yeah.
So I was kind of curious where that kind of came into play.
Yeah, Podcast One came from Westwood One, which was a terrestrial radio company, and Norm Pattis, rest in peace. He started Podcast One because he started Westwood One, and he's like a radio legend, and he took all of his knowledge over to podcasting to sort of attack that frontier.
Wow, I did not know that. That's interesting. That came from radio. Actually, makes a lot of sense though.
Oh, there's so much similarities with radio, because radio was on its way out when podcasting was sort of blossoming. So it was kind of interesting to see the crossover, because there's a lot of people who came from radio and just didn't really know what this was. So they were trying a lot of old school tactics with something that was really new, and just watching how things worked or didn't work was kind of fun.
So I do want to talk about then. Okay, so you got the first gig, you kept on sticking around for a while until they actually hired you, but then you went from doing tech to becoming now a producer of the show.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big leap, because usually people who are in tech, they stay in that realm, right? They're working on behind the scenes, but then you became producer.
Yeah, my technical and technological skills they're all right, but I'm always trying to be as creative as possible in a lot of different ways, and I think that sort of helped the decision to sort of put me on that path to becoming a producer. I mean, I did everything for that network. I did the sound. I did call screening. I did some of the some of the technical directing. I did the videos. I did the website. Every aspect of that show that went out to people I touched. So I just knowing how it all worked sort of got me a little more credit in that sense too, because if I needed to fix something, I knew either how to do it or who to go to have that be done. And I think that's important.
Wow. And did you volunteer to do these tasks, or was it thrusted upon you saying, "Hey, Chris, we needed you to work on the website now," or did you volunteer for it?
I volunteered. I learned website coding and basic, but I was still able to figure it all out, to get advertisers on our website and things. I learned it all. I spent the night there, many nights, just trying to increase my skills and my knowledge. I had a lot of free time, I guess, but I was just doing everything I could to push the show and propel it. So it's and that's kind of what a producer is. It's just like somebody who literally produces, who makes it happen, who, regardless of what it takes, you got to make it happen. And that's something that I sort of figured out.
That's incredible, and I admire that trait of yours, because not everyone will easily volunteer for those things, and clearly that has paid off for you in dividends, because the fact that you were willing to take on that work and to showcase that, hey, I can do all these different things that can provide value to the show. And clearly you went up on a number of levels. You went to essentially becoming executive producer for the show, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, I became executive producer. I left the show in 2024, but I left it as the executive producer and showrunner and the co-host. I literally made it all the way to just sitting next to Adam on the Adam Carolla Show. So it got to the point where it's like my next move would just I would have to become Adam Carolla. There's no higher place.
I also am very curious how that works, because again, as producer, you're doing all these things behind the scenes. So you went from doing the tech aspects of it to basically managing the entire show, and then you're become a co-host. Now you're literally in front of the mic at that point in time.
Yeah, would not recommend doing wow. Spinning all those plates. It was, it just sort of happened, and Adam liked having me in studio as someone to bounce off of. I think a lot of it was just because I've known him for so long, so it felt easy to just sort of guide each other for any topic or for any interview. So it was nice, and so I think that's why he wanted it that way. But man, I remember I would just sit there. I would have a laptop open, which is tough for me to do when I'm having a conversation, because I want to keep completely focused on people. But I get messages, oh, the guest is running late, or things like that, and me having to have a conversation while producing the show is sort of tough. But definitely a good stress test for what I'm capable of. We got through it.
I'll just say, as far as that side of it is concerned, can you talk about maybe a story? You don't necessarily have to say who the guest was, where a story that where the interview was going in a wrong direction, or whether it's a technical issue or something was going on that you had to kind of course correct, if you will.
Oh man, there are a few. One of them, that I still get, I still break out in a sweat just thinking about, is we had, I don't want to say any names, but we had a fairly high profile person walk in who wasn't booked, or there was a booking between our booker and their agent or their PR person. So there was some wires crossed, and we were finishing the show, and that person walks in to be interviewed, and we literally could not do it. And us having to break it to that person that hey, thanks for driving an hour and a half to get here, but we cannot be here right now, and we're sorry. So that was tough. Elliot Gould coming on the show, not knowing really we did a live podcast with him, and he was not playing ball, which actually turned out to be funny and something we could laugh about later. But I remember being in that room just thinking, whew, this is rough. Like, just everything was a one-word answer and ended with a little bit of sarcasm. Like he just wasn't really having a good time. I remember that one was pretty legendary. But I mean, geez, there's so many. We used to count down like the most uncomfortable moments of the year, and there's no shortage of them on the show.
I can imagine. It is challenging when you have a guest that you have to try to get the answers out of them and so forth. And I understand sometimes people, it's their first time doing it or something along those lines. So you have to find ways of trying to get them to talk and get them to tell stories.
Yeah.
And talk about themselves.
What was really bad was like during the actors strike, or it was the writer's strike, but the actors in solidarity would refuse to talk about any film or TV projects that they had because they wanted to support the writers. So we had all these actors booked, and we were told we could not ask them about their careers or any projects coming up or anything about acting, which was just like, what are we going to talk about? I remember we talked to Ben McKenzie, who is whom I love. He's on the OC. And we had to talk to him about crypto for like 45 minutes.
Wow. That's kind of interesting. I mean, I think that actually becomes an interesting topic though, right? Because normally everyone else is going to talk to them about their acting careers or what their current projects are and so forth. And you were kind of forced to go outside of that a little bit and talk about something completely different.
It's a really good exercise. And I sort of made a show, in like, I think it was 2012. I started a podcast called Resume where I did just that. I would have people come in and we would just go over all the crappy jobs they had growing up, and before we even get to why they're famous now. And I remember that being really fun, just hearing about these weird skills that people have that nobody really knows about because they worked, they were a pizza man for 5 years before anybody knew who they were. So.
That's really cool. Is that show still around? Is that still online?
I stopped it. I took a break when I started, basically when I started really producing the Carolla Show, because that took up all my time, and I did everything on that show. Kind of like what you're doing here. I booked, I produced, I hosted, he had a prep, had a schedule, everything. So it was the post-production, everything, right? So it was a lot. So I took a break, but I'm really, really proud of that show. I remember it debuted as like one of the top podcasts, like period. So like being next, I have a screenshot of it somewhere where my podcast is like right next to Bill Burr's and Mark Maron's, which was just blew my mind that like I was just amongst them with something I created.
Good for you. And was that at that point in time through the network that you've built to help produce your own, or
they put it on the on Carolla Digital, so that totally helped because we were able to do like cross promotion and things like that. And since I was already sort of a known voice on the network, that helped a lot too, that people were able to tune in and kind of find it.
That's truly amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps when you have a show like that really helps you define the questions, right? Because with Resume, it's really what were your original crappy jobs where you led up to today. So there's already a formula in place. But for something like the Adam Carolla Show, I mean, like, how do you prepare those questions? Because I know for myself, I do my homework and try to find particular topics I want to discuss and what I think is going to be interesting for my audience, and try to avoid the same questions that I would expect them to get asked over and over again. So I try to find something new. Mm-hmm. So, but like, how do you come across that? I mean, we talked about before about the fact that we don't tell that you don't tell the guests ahead of time what those questions are.
Well, that was a strategic move for that level. And that was just because every time we did it, their PR team would go, no, don't even think about asking about that topic. Don't even think about asking about who he or she is dating or anything like that when we really want to know, because we knew that would make news or things like that. So we purposely didn't tell them that if we didn't have to, because we knew it would get shut down, and we had them sign the release before they walked in. So it was
Wow.
it was strategic, but and like we weren't trying to pull anything. We didn't do anything inappropriate or that we thought. It's just PR teams are extra safe because they have to be, and so we were just taking a little bit more risk, I guess, with those. So, but if I do see a benefit both ways of either not asking beforehand or giving the questions beforehand too. So yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what's the better way, but as far as that went, that's the only reason I said that is because we were trying to make news, get clips, things like that. That was important for promotion.
It makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
But as far as like what I did for the Carolla Show, whenever guests would come in, I always listened to a few podcasts that they were on, just to sort of get a read of how they spoke, what they responded to. That I did a lot more prep in that sense. And if there was like, they said something on a podcast and I wanted them to elaborate more and they didn't, it's like, okay, I got to bring that up because I want to hear more about this. So that was always important. I would always check if they were in the news for something, because what's getting picked up would get picked up the next day. We were a daily show, so we were like the only daily podcast at the time. We would go 5 days a week, so it would always just get posted the next day. So it was really, really topical, which was a benefit for us. We could talk about the news and it would still be timely. So that was always a big deal for us. We would always remember what worked last time, and we try to see if we could, lightning could strike twice in that spot, and if we could find anything good there. I mean, there's a lot of different. We play games with them. I mean, yeah, we sort of catered around to the guest whilst bringing them into our universe rather than having us all go into theirs.
Wow, it does take a lot to go through and to really find those questions and to make sure that you are bringing something to the table with the guest that ideally you're getting, like you said, more either elaborating on things you discussed before or something that they have never really discussed before either. It's a very challenging thing to do is to do that research, but then also having that mindset of finding those good nuggets to talk about so that there's value to the episode for people to listen to.
Yeah, I think prep is really valuable, and it shows when you're speaking to somebody that you respect them and that you care about them. And it sort of disarms them a little bit when you do that. If you do an interview and you obviously, and you can tell, like if somebody doesn't really know who the other person is, in fact, like Smartless made a whole podcast about that, right? Or like if they, two people aren't prepped and one is, so you can sort of figure that out. But yeah, I think prep is really valuable.
Was there a moment or a guest that you had on the show that really inspired you?
A lot of them did. This is going to sound like a really generic answer, but they all did, because it was just cool being in a room where every day somebody who made something happen walked in and got to talk about it. Either made something of themselves or created something cool. So that was always really inspiring, just to go, man, all these people every day is just coming in and they made it happen. So that was definitely something I would think about a lot. As far as inspiring, there's a comedian named Joe Coy who I helped develop his podcast, and it's just inspiring to me because we did live podcasts. I remember we did a live podcast in someone's backyard. Like we put out like a call, and someone had a fan like host us in her backyard. at our house somewhere in the valley, and we had a few people come out and we recorded it there, and it was just a really fun night. And then 2 weekends ago, Joe sold out SoFi Stadium, and I got to watch him perform in front of SoFi Stadium. So just seeing that sort of discrepancy of audience and platform was mind-blowing. So I would say that's inspiring.
Was there anything that either Adam has said over the years, or anybody has said that like really stuck with you?
Oh yeah. I mean, here's one, and it's a little more practical, but when I got the call to be executive producer in 2018, the first thing I did was I read Gary Dell'Abate's biography or autobiography. Didn't really help that much, but it was just sort of the first step. And the second step that I did was I called a friend who worked on Adam's radio show when he was on terrestrial radio, and he forwarded me. He worked on the show, so he had all of his old emails and all of his old notes from the show and like what worked and what didn't. And I asked him, just send me everything. I just want to inhale these things, like these notes of, these air checks and notes from the producers and why things worked. I just needed to know all of that. And one of the producers of the show was this guy named Jimmy Kimmel, and huge radio background. I know everyone, of course, knows him as the late night host, but his background is radio, and he's a genius with radio. So I read all of his notes, and he wasn't shy about what worked and what didn't, and letting people know about it, because he wanted the show to succeed. So one of the things he said that stuck with me was every month, because we were a daily show, said every month do something sort of different, like create an event, create some sort of theme. Like every single month you got to do something different. And so either put it around March Madness or put it around the holidays, or host a car wash for the month, like things like that. So every month take a risk and just do something that wasn't the regular 9 to 5 daily show that we were doing. And it sort of just kind of inspired different creations of either events or I don't even know, but I think about that all the time. Just that was a weird thing that stuck with me. But I know other people. I told other people this, and they've done it on their shows, and they're just like, "That was amazing, thank you." So
I think I have to figure out a way to incorporate it to mine. That's
yeah.
That's actually quite genius. And you're right. You sometimes have to do things that are going to be different. That's going to get people's attention. And and ideally, if you could do a live event where it's again a gathering, a community, even better.
Yeah, exactly. So and just 12 times a year is a lot. It's like, I mean, you even doing a podcast once a week is a lot. It's a lot. Like it feels like, oh, it's just an hour a week, I'll just do it. No, it takes up so much time and commitment. So adding another thing every month is going to be a lot, but I think it's so worth it. And it just keeps things fresh. Like this can get monotonous all the time, but it just adds. It's like adding like an herb to your recipe that sort of just brightens it up.
That's amazing. Do you remember? So did you actually do that on the Adam Carolla? Like, did you do those things on the Adam Carolla Show? Did you do like a monthly?
As much as we could. Yeah, as much as we could. But it was also hard because we traveled so much. We did do live events all the time. But yeah, trying new things. I remember that was probably the most fun I had, was whenever we would just try something new. Hey, let's do a fashion show on the show, and like let's tease everybody on the staff for what they wear. Like it's just taking those risks and doing things a little bit out of the ordinary when you've already established what the ordinary is I just found that the most fun. It didn't always work, but it was most fun.
Can you talk about one that worked really well, and can you talk about one that maybe did not work so well?
Yeah. Let's see. One that didn't work well. I I remember driving in to work and I thought of this segment. Maybe I saw like some Catholic movie or something where I was like, let's have callers call in and it could be completely anonymous and let's just have them confess something. And
Oh,
and
okay.
then in response, it's sort of an improv game. Adam will come up with a penance for them, for him or her to do to sort of balance it out, balance their life out a little bit. And I was like, okay, that'd be kind of fun. Like, let's hear about somebody who cheated on their test or, stole a candy bar or something like that. And some of the calls we got were very disturbing. I was like, oh my, like this, like they're anonymous and some of them were very fun too. But I remember like there was one where a guy said that he was the father of a child, but the girlfriend told the other guy that he was that guy was the father, and so that guy just went his whole life thinking that he was the father for years and years. And this other guy's like, yeah, and I'm just watching my kid grow up on Facebook, and I don't know, and I'm
Wow.
just not going to let them, and I'm not going to tell them. And I just remember like, I can't believe things like that happen. Like they
Yeah.
do, but it's just like I remember that one just stuck with me. I was like, man, I created this segment and he just put that out there. And it was a weird, it was a weird feeling. Something that did work. Let's see. I mean, gosh, luckily with Adam, he's very good at improv. So almost anything you threw at him would work. Um, we would have this guy, Kyle Dunnigan, whom I think is a comedic genius. And I remember it was sort of during COVID, and we could talk about how crazy COVID was for the show, but um, so he would do remotes in, and he was really big into face swapping into different celebrities and doing impressions of them. And so I remember me and Kyle one night just spending hours trying to figure out how we can have all of these characters just sort of pop up in a conversation and with just a click of a mouse to where his face would just change into somebody and he could do their impression and do an interview as Sylvester Stallone and then pop up again and he would become just any celebrity. And that worked really well. That a lot of people responded to that.
So that's amazing. I did want to talk about what you got going on right now. So
Yeah.
we talked quite a bit about the Adam Carolla Show, but you are still quite busy even post the show, and you're going back mostly behind the scenes now, right? So you're
Yeah.
doing mostly content producing and things like that. And I mean, you do things for Yamaha now and all kinds of other different companies.
Yeah, so as I said, music is my background and it's my favorite thing in the world. So once once I hit that aforementioned ceiling in podcasting, or at least on the Adam Carolla Show, I just want to try something new and pivot towards music again. So I'm creating a lot of content and producing basically anything that Yamaha has visually and in sort of media. I pretty much have my hands in one way or another, and it's been really fun. So getting to do that and be around music and musicians and instruments it almost feels like a cheat code in life. So I get to do that. I still do podcasting. I still get together with my friends and we do something called the water cooler, which is a lot of fun that we've built a really great community around. And we've just as the best community. Shout out to all the water cooler listeners out there and the Bobo boys and girls. And it's just so I still do that. I consult for other podcasters and whether they're established or up and coming or want to try it, which is fun because I love, I know we're getting near the end of this episode, but I love talking about gear. I love talking about strategy. I love talking about all that stuff. It's so fun. And I highly highly recommend like trying out Patreon and or any sort of subscription, things like that. So if you have any podcasting questions, hit me up. let's chat. And yeah, still doing music, still just anything. I guess just anything that I think is worthwhile and fun. I'll keep going, keep doing it.
I see like a whole rack of guitars back there. So I assume you're a guitarist. Do you play any other instruments?
Guitar is my main instrument. Most people would probably consider me a singer more, but guitar is my favorite thing to do. And then enough to like those are the instruments I would say that I actually play, and then I dabble in a lot of other things, but not good enough to where I'd say play it or where people would pay me money to do it in front of them.
I was to say, do you perform live at all or anything like that?
Yeah, I do gigs all the time. Locally, I've gotten to play at some really cool places. In my days as well, I've been very, very fortunate to share the stage with some cool people. So, yeah, I love it. I mean, we see each other at NAMM all the time. Like it's paradise for me.
It's Candyland for anybody who's in music, right?
Right.
It's
yeah.
literally that's why I tell anybody who has not gone before, it's literally Candyland.
That's the best way to put it. I love it. It's like Willy Wonka's factory. You can't eat everything, but you get to at least get your hands on it and play.
You could actually like try things out. Yeah. It's interesting because you mentioned about music. Like, I want to ask you this question real quick. Like, what kind of genre is usually the music you like to play?
I gravitate more towards R&B, rock, pop. Yeah, but punk rock as well. Like I love it all. So but most people associate me with like rock and R&B.
Nice.
Yeah. But I love music, so any way I can incorporate the two. I mean, Resume was sort of like a almost a little backdoor sort of entry into just talking to musicians and just getting to hear about their process and things like that. It was sort of a little secret. Like anytime I had a musician on, it was always just like, let's dive into your process. Let's talk about songwriting. But really just for my own curiosity.
It's interesting because you were talking about before about music, but then also about gear as well and so forth. And I think that might be just an entirely other episode. And
I'm down.
We're like just having like just a conversation, get like a bunch of podcasters together and musicians and just talk about gear or something. And
I've tried them all.
Really fun conversation.
Yeah, headphones, microphones, mixers, everything. You want to go portable? You want to go use it as an interface? Whatever. Like I've tried them all.
Okay, that might be so. All right, so one of the month events, if you will, is going to be that. It's going to be a full blown gear episode. We'll get a couple of people on board, and we'll do like one like specifically on podcasting and just all the gear we use and everything like that, and what we tried before and what we like to use.
Yeah,
I think that'll be kind of fun.
I'm down, and I don't even say, I'm not even going to say like what I use or what I do is completely correct or the best way. I love hearing about what other people have. I mean, I just even love hearing what people have in their backpacks and like what their office setup is and what their travel setup is, and not necessarily for podcasting, but just for working or for anything like that. So I'm all for it.
That's a blast. In fact, that's what you've asked me that question a couple of times before. You're like, I want to know what you use, Mike. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is my list. And in fact, you inspired me because when you mentioned that, I went, you know what? I should just throw that in my show notes. So in the show notes of every single episode, it says tech specs like a lot of the streamers do. And I just have lists everything that I use for this podcast is listed in there with links
Brilliant.
to what it is. Because
that's really helpful.
Right? Because some podcasters just don't know where to get started, and this has been built over years. That's not how I started, but like that's how it was built over years. But this way, like, oh, this is the things that you use to put everything together.
I totally agree, and I would found that so helpful, being able to just click links or just know this is the product I can get with this gear, and so and a lot of people always ask me like, oh, I have this much to spend. What kind of setup can I have for a decent podcast and things like that? So it's a big deal.
It is a big
Share
deal.
the knowledge, man.
Oh, I'm a very big believer.
I guess that's
in
what this show is, right? It's sharing knowledge.
I like going under the hood on every aspect of it. It's like not just like how your career, like I like to go under the hood of your career leading up to where you're today, but also talking about tech stuff and like, okay, where you are today, here's the things I've used, the things I've used in the past. These are the things that worked out. These are the things that did not necessarily work out. Like all the, all those things, or this helped me lead to this thing. You know? So yeah, that'll be super fun to do that.
Even just seeing pictures of people's desks and just what their workstation looks like.
I don't know if I would do that just
no,
yet.
No, I wouldn't either. Mine's
Mine's
a mess right now. But no, but I love looking at it. I don't know why. It's just I checking out the hardware.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so we'll do that for next time.
Okay.
But for now, I know we were wrapping up here, so I do have a couple of fun questions, couple of rapid fire questions for you to finish things out.
Okay.
First one is, what is a podcast that you're listening to right now that's not your own?
I mentioned Smartless. I love Smartless. Conan's podcast is great, and any of the Ringer stuff, Big Picture, Rewatchables, things like that. So. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, but I gravitate more towards comedy.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you have an artist right now that you're really liking that you're listening to?
Oh, a ton. Let's see. I've been going to a lot of the 10 and 20 year reunion of albums coming out now, just because a lot of bands are finally realizing like, oh, all those youngins who used to listen to our record now finally have jobs and can come out to shows and things like that. So, I just saw the Early November play, and I've never seen them play live, but I've been a fan of them since I was like in high school. So that was kind of cool seeing them do their thing, and they still rock, man. So I'm just gonna say that just because recency bias. I just saw them on Friday.
That's really cool. All right, last question for you. If you were only able to give one piece of advice, what would that one piece of advice be?
Be vulnerable. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's so easy to overthink anything. This is advice that I need to take too, but it's so easy to overthink anything and not put yourself out there in a way that may not even be true because you're afraid to be vulnerable publicly or with an audience or even just for yourself. But this is something I want to encourage people to do because I think that's where we get the best stuff. And that's where I think and when you're vulnerable and there are people that support you, it's just one of the greatest feelings in the world. So it's okay to be vulnerable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Chris. This is truly I was so excited to do this interview with you, and it's an incredible honor. I mean, the work that you've done all these years and so forth, and the friendship that we started building together, it just means a lot to me. So thank you so much for being on the show.
The honor's all mine. I'm a big fan of you. I sat in one of your. I don't even know if I told you this. I saw you do a presentation at NAMM the year before I came on.
Really?
And you had like a broken leg or arm?
Oh, on the arm.
You had a broken arm.
I had a pinched nerve and I had no idea how to deal with it, so I just threw myself on a sling.
Yeah, that's what it was. But I remember I was in the audience that day. I didn't say anything to you, but I sat through it, loved it.
Thank you for coming. That's amazing.
Yeah, and so I've been a fan of yours for years too. So
I really appreciate that.
The honor's all mine to be on this show.